you gotta have a thick skin as far as failure goes. If you don't like failing, you're gonna have a long road ahead of you.
This is the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk to athletes, adventurers, and business owners from around the world of adventure sports. Whether you're climbing Mount Everest, starting a bike shop, or getting up off your couch to take your kids hiking for the first time, we want you to have the motivation and inspiration you need to chase that next adventure. The Adventure Sports Podcast is brought to you by Camp Crate, the leaders in fully planned self-guided backpacking adventures, as well as backpacking gear rental. You can check them out at campcrate.net. So there's this new backpacking food company called Peak Refuel. And honestly, I gave them a shot for my last backpacking trip. Y'all, it was literally the best backpacking food I've ever had in my life. I was so impressed by them that I wanted to reach out and get a deal for our listeners. So if you keep listening to the episode, I'll tell you how to save 20% off an order with them.
Hey friends, check out powder7.com, new sponsor for the Adventure Sports Podcast. I've worked with these guys for a couple of years, and two of my sons have bought their most recent pairs of skis there. What's cool is that while they do sell new skis, they also sell previously used demo skis. And these demo skis come with demo binding, so no need to remount anything. And they are sold for less than half of what you would have to pay otherwise. Great deal, great website, great people. Check out powder7.com.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Danner. Really functional, really good-looking hiking boots, but they can serve all kinds of purposes. Check them out, danner.com. All right, welcome to the show. Today I have Bart Laemmel, and he's going to tell us about his adventure experiences as well as how it's changed for him over the years. Bart, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Do you remember picking up a couple cyclists in Gunnison about, 3 years ago?
Yeah, I do. I was heading out of town, heading to the East Coast from Crested Butte, and had a big trailer attached to my truck and my mountain bike, and I was heading to New York to pick up a tree.
Yeah.
There was these two guys standing on the side of the road with mountain bikes and pack bikes, really, hitchhiking, and I'm guessing that was you.
Dude, that was me and my friend. How crazy is that?
That's pretty funny, man.
Yeah, I remember, man. You had a mohawk and you had a trailer, and I'm like, where are you headed? You're like, to the East Coast. I'm like, holy crap. Dang.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of the trip, man.
Yeah, I had my family tree finally blew over in my front yard, 85-year-old maple. That was like the center of our driveway for years, and finally gave up the ghost. So I went back there to pick up some big pieces of the trunk, which is like 4.5 feet wide. And I milled it up. So I'm going to make some furniture for my family.
Did you ever do anything with it?
It's still drying.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's the problem with that type of stuff. Yeah, I cut it into like 3 and 4 inch slabs, huge slabs with a chainsaw mill. And after dragging it back here, and so it's still drying. I'm actually right about that 3-year period where I could start working with some of the smaller pieces.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is a good place to do that because it's so dry out here.
Yeah, I don't know if I broke any rules taking agricultural product across state lines and stuff, but
it's not. I don't think you were hiding it. It's pretty hard to hide a big old tree dragging across the country.
Exactly. Yeah, I got a lot of people. It was really actually kind of funny dropping into like gas stations and stuff. Random people will come up to you and talk to you and be like, "Man, that's a nice looking piece of tree right there."
That's funny, man. Yeah, me and my buddy were on a trip and we were running out of time. He had to fly out, and so we're like, dang it, we don't have enough time to do the whole loop. So we decided to get a little closer to where we were finishing so he could get back home for his flight. But I remember that, and we got in touch. I'm like, man, I recognize this guy's name. And sure enough, man, it was you. That's so cool. You left an impact on us for sure. You were a fun energy. We were having kind of a rough trip, so appreciate that.
Well, you had bitten off a big role, you know. I figured you guys were way too out of the norm not to pick up. Put it that way. Yeah, it's like I was like, something's up here. I was like, there's a story here for sure.
And here we are doing this. Oh, so yeah. So why don't you? What's your background? Where are you from? What kind of sports were you doing early on in life, and how'd you end up in Crested Butte?
Well, yeah, I grew up in New York, right outside the city, just up out of the city in the Hudson Valley, and from like 6th grade on, I knew I was moving to Colorado. I came out here for my sister's graduation from DU, and I was just like, that's it. Like, that's it. You know, this is where I'm coming, and this is where I'm going to end up. And so, I was always a sports fanatic. I grew up as a ski racer, football player, lacrosse, playing basketball in the park till, well past dark, whatever I could do physically, that's what I did, and, from a very early age. And, I loved it. I wasn't much of an academic, growing up. I didn't get it very much. Wasn't very good at it, but I was good at sports, and I ended up getting accepted to Western State College out here. And I mean, come on, you live in Gunnison and you can hitchhike, and within 40 minutes you're skiing Crested Butte.
Yeah, true.
Come on, you can't beat it. And you get to live here. And for a kid like me with my mentality and just wanting to be here, and it was like the perfect thing. So I ended up at Western, and went through everything, as far as, like I said, played lacrosse there, on the club, which was a lot of fun. We did a ton of volleyball. We did, we were snowboarders, skiers, got into kayaking, raft guiding, mountain biking, a little bit of climbing, not so much, more just like messing around. What they call bouldering now, I guess, was what we would do back then. We just scramble around on stuff. But just being, connected to the outdoors and kind of adventure things in general. I don't think it was like any obsession over one thing. Maybe kayaking really, was the one thing that I definitely obsessed over for many years.
Okay. Skiing. So you were just kind of an all around athlete. You also played in a couple punk rock bands, right?
Yeah. I was in a few punk rock bands in college, and then I was in a band called Daddy Likes Men that we did an extensive 3-year tour of the Gunnison Valley.
Oh man, I almost spit out my coffee.
Yeah, and we were kind of the token punk band for the Valley at the time, and it's just fun stuff. Nothing serious, just us being goofballs and in our 20s, right?
Yeah.
Being in your 20s is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've done a couple big adventures, like you did a huge motorcycle adventure in Mexico, right?
Yeah, I've done a couple of more just recently, really, in the past few years. We'll probably get into that later. Kind of like I discovered adventure motorcycling, so more enduro bikes and doing bigger trips on those. I've always liked dirt biking. I've always been into that since I was a kid, but I never got into the street thing. And in a lot of ways, discovering that about 4 or 5 years ago really kind of saved my life in a lot of ways. Provided me an outlet for adventure that otherwise I didn't have due to the injuries that I've sustained over the years.
So did you beat yourself up quite a bit?
Yeah. My brother always called me. He was like, he would introduce me and he'd be like, yeah, this is Bart, and he's my brother and one of the world's greatest athletes, yet he's the biggest klutz on the planet. So, at the same time,
yeah, it's a recipe, man, for disaster.
Yeah, I'm kind of able to physically do anything, and I was also able to hurt myself doing it at the same time. And unfortunately, I've had some body parts that over the years have given out. Mainly the main problem I have is both my ankles are pretty much, I don't have any cartilage left, in both my ankles, and they're just kind of arthritic, 8 surgeries later on those suckers. And, we're basically biding time to when I can do a replacement, or fuse them. I'm just a little bit too young for both of those. So I'm kind of plodding along, trying to wait for technology to catch up and for me to get a little bit older so I don't wear things out more. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So when did they start giving you problems, your ankles?
Well, the ankle problems all started back. It took a long time to mess up everything. And, but to get it where it is now, I mean, we're talking a 28-year period. It all started with a mistimed jump between a deck and a carport in college, and broke my left ankle. Didn't quite make it, and fell into the car park. And there might have been some alcohol involved, maybe,
Nah.
And
so probably helped.
So wasn't exactly the best decision maker for a long time. So broke my ankle, and then playing lacrosse, I tore it up again the next year. And then on my right ankle, that was my left ankle, my right ankle, over the next like 15 years, I had probably about 15 really good high ankle sprains on both ankles, and just kept going. Volleyball wasn't a help. Hurt him a lot playing sand volleyball. A few waterfalls to, nothing like a 30-foot drop to rocks, kayaking.
Did kayaking hurt your ankles as well?
Yeah, mainly just because of those impact. Like when I look back on it at the time, I didn't think that those few times that I you'd come off even 15, 20 foot falls. And if you didn't hit them right and you smack some rock, man, I put a lot, enough to blow out the whole bulkhead of the boat,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a lot of impact, and, it's kind of an accumulative thing, which is, I think, one of the main things that happens with most of us who are in adventure sports and in things that are, we define ourselves physically in so many ways. The people who do these sports, whether it be skiing or, dirt biking or, climbing, we take a lot of impact. It's a lot of torque on a body and the body parts. And it's very hard to come through that without, really damaging something over the years. Unfortunately, if you mix kind of unfortunately, I found out if you mix an attitude of, just keep moving, you'll be fine. Rub a little tough on it. The ability to deal with pain. Evidently, I have a pretty high tolerance for pain. I'm not trying to brag. It's really actually a really bad thing. And, you find that out too late, just a tenacity and a want to adventure. And you mix all those things together and you can really screw yourself up because you don't tend to pay attention. You've been able to physically overcome the world for a long time. Just throw yourself at the world and just keep going. And all of a sudden, the world becomes just harder and harder and harder, and it catches up to you. I have a lot of friends. Who are in that boat right now. I'm 48 years old, just turned 48 years old. And a lot of people in my peer group are really seeing the detriments to their bodies and, trying to redefine themselves.
Yeah. It's not the age, man. It's the mileage.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been really, the catalyst of my injuries really came in about 2008, 2009. I was really getting to the point where I couldn't work anymore. I couldn't function anymore physically. And I'm a carpenter, right? By trade, that's where I ended up.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how did it affect your work?
Well, that's, and being a carpenter was another notch on that whole thing. You kind of hurt yourself on one thing, and then all of a sudden, you're moving yourself through a 7-8 hour day, lifting heavy things, and you're just you keep moving until then you can't. And, so, it's kind of get it from both ends, right? In my situation. Yeah. So, I ended up at a point where I had to rebuild my right ankle because it was just done. And they did a major surgery. I opted to do it all at once, even though the doctor was a little bit like, do you want to do this all at once? And I was like, yeah, let's just do it. At that point, I had already had 4 or 5 surgeries. So I was like, yeah, I'm used to it, whatever. And, they ended up cutting my tibia to realign it with my talus, and then cut my heel bone to realign that with my talus as well, to line everything up. They put my peroneal tendons were severed. So they put that back in place. They dug out all the arthritic and scar tissues, bolted me all back together, and then put this external fixator on my foot with like 9 bolts going through my foot and my leg, and to hold everything together, but also to separate the joint so that I could grow scar tissue inside the joint. So that I'd actually have space inside the joint, because I was like bone on bone. So they did this all once. It was like a 5.5 hour surgery. And the second I woke up, I was like, oh, I made a bad decision. I knew it right away. I've never been in that much pain in my entire life. I broke the hospital bed cranking on it. I've never been in that much pain. And I've absolutely in my entire life never been that drugged up ever. I remember at one point they had me on Oxycontin, Oxycodone, and Dilaudid all at the same time, just to try to get ahead of the pain.
So like I said before, Peak Refuel is a new company making freeze-dried food, and it's literally the best freeze-dried meals I've ever had. You can use it for backpacking, camping, hunting, whatever you want to use it for. And these folks are the real deal. They spent over 2 years researching the market and creating the perfect recipes, and it is just absolutely awesome. I used the meals on my last guided trip, and the people on the trip could not even believe that it was freeze-dried food. Literally, you put a cup of water in, it's like a cup or cup and a half. It's not very much water, and it tastes like it came from a restaurant. That's how good it is. If you're interested in ordering some yourself, you can get 20% off by going to peakrefuel.com and use ASP20 at checkout. I encourage you, go get some, try it for yourself. It's amazing.
This is Colorado nature photographer John Fielder with a great idea for gifting our state this season. Don't get mad at me. My latest Colorado book actually takes the color out of colorful Colorado. Carpets of purple columbine, forests of yellow aspens, and buff-colored herds of elk are rendered in black, white, and gray. You'll be mesmerized by the edges, shapes, and textures of our most beautiful of states. You'll love it. Visit johnfielder.com to see my new book, Colorado Black on White. That's johnfielder.com.
And I remember when the nurse came in, she's like, okay, we got to test you out on your crutches. And I was like, oh, yeah, right. I came focused. So, yeah, I ended up with that large reconstruction, and that was in October. Things in my life weren't going that great. The economy wasn't that great. I was, really struggling financially.
Yeah, surgeries ain't cheap either.
Yeah, surgeries ain't cheap.
Especially about a dozen of them.
Yeah, like I had good insurance, but you're talking about $170,000 surgery. One thing leads to another. By the time I'm all said and done, I'm in February, separated, getting divorced, losing my house, and I've got a huge blood clot in my leg that I didn't know about. Went from my knee all the way down through my foot. And I don't feel very well, so I go to the hospital, and sure enough, I got 5 blood clots in my lungs. So it was a very sobering time.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so I went through really big shift, you might say, in my whole reality at that point. And not just because it's one thing getting divorced. Okay, yeah, you're going through a thing like that, but everything I dealt with up until that point was an injury is physical, right? Like somebody could show me an x-ray and I could look at it and go, oh, okay, that's broken. We need to do X, Y, and Z to fix it. You can wrap your head around that. But when your body starts doing things like blood clots, I can maybe think of it, if somebody gets cancer, like,
yeah, it's out of your control. at that point.
Yeah, it's like your body revolting against you, doing something against you, rather than me doing something against my body, and now I got to fix it. And so
yeah, that's got to be humbling to go through.
Yeah, it's the first time I think in my entire life I was afraid to go to sleep. I was just sitting in the hospital room, and at this point, my ex-wife was with me in the hospital, but we were separated, and it was kind of weird the way it all came about, because we were separated. She had stopped by the house to get some stuff and everything, and I was sitting on the couch, and she just looked at me and she goes, "You all right?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I don't feel well. Something's wrong."
Mm.
I just said, "Something's wrong." And she's like, "Well, should we go to the hospital?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go." And, we went down and then we found the clots, but I was alone in my hotel room, and I was just sitting there or hospital room, and I didn't want to go to sleep.
Like, what emotionally, where were you? What was your mindset? I mean, I know when I met you, you're just full of energy, totally excited. And honestly, I got to talking to my friend after we met you. I'm like, I wonder if you can maintain that all the time. Cause it's encouraging, of course, but I know how taxing that can be emotionally.
I've always been a pretty happy-go-lucky person.
Yeah, that's definitely easy to see.
Yeah, not to say you don't have your times, you don't have your seriousness and blah, 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 and all those things, but I designed myself, I couldn't find greeting cards, so I designed my own, and on it I just put making it up by the seat of my pants since 1970,
Yes.
And, so just because I kind of like haven't really planned out a whole lot in my life. I just haven't been that way. Not to say for good or bad. It's just the way I am. Like you said, my attitude at this time was, it's hard when I think back on it. I don't think that I was that off, but I run into people who definitely tell me I was. Let's put it that way. In my mind, I didn't really see it, but there was a lot of, people see me now, especially, and they're like, "Hey man," they're like, "It's good to have you back." Period there where you were it was rough, man, for you, huh?
Yeah.
And not in like I was rough on people around me or anything like that. It was just more, there was definitely not the typical me, put it that way.
Did you delve into any depression, or did you kind of stave that off?
I didn't dive into depression.
That's really surprising,
No, totally. And it's funny, through this whole process, I'm really through this whole process, and over the last, just recently, I've had the epiphany that maybe I should write all this down. If not for my own good, or maybe it would do somebody else some good. Because people have talked to me, they've been like, "Dude, how have you kept such a good attitude through this whole thing?" It's like, yeah, you could tell you were broken down, or you could tell you weren't you, but you definitely had a great attitude. Like, you seem like you were always moving at least the right direction. And, so I don't know, to tell you the truth, I don't know what that is. I don't know why I can do it and maybe somebody else can't, because I have, like I said, I have had some friends who go through this, and they've really gotten in some super depressive states, even to the point where there's some of my friends, close friends, I couldn't talk to them, because they were just so negative and so depressive that it was like, it's hard for me to say, but yeah, it was really hard for me to talk to them. I've kept a good attitude. I think that's mainly just because I've never had a plan.
So there was no there was no real sense of derailing from a plan that you were trying to get to in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Like, I never looked at it as like, oh my God, now I won't be able to climb Everest, or whatever, whatever it may be.
It's a good way to go for this to happen.
I guess, maybe it's just lucky. And like I said, there's a lot, there's a lot of other things that, not planning kind of gets you in trouble with. I mean, you're talking to a guy who at 40 ended up with dead zero again.
Dude, you're talking to your younger self right here. So you need to teach me some things.
So,
come on, what's some advice, man? Because
Well, all you can say is this. All you say is this you almost have to look at things in decades when I look back on it. Like,
right.
In my 20s, we were we were insane in a lot of ways. Like, and when I say I have no plan, like literally, like I got out of college and a friend of mine owned a snowboard shop and he's like, hey, this is even before I got out of college. He's like, you want to buy in? I'm like, all right. I just started snowboarding a year before. Sure, I'd grown up skiing, so I knew the industry. I lived here. I don't know jack shit about running a snowboard shop, right?
I love it.
Yeah, I don't know anything, right? I was an art major, for Christ's sakes. And,
that really speaks a lot to your planning.
Yeah, right? So I'm like, I'm going to do it. And if you looked at the financials for this snowboard shop, there'd be no way in hell anybody on this planet would go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And I was putting my whole life savings, $10,000, which is nothing really. It's a drop in the bucket, but it's all I got.
Right.
So I'm dumping all mine in, and it's nothing, but I got this thing to do. So I got something to do. Right. And I've always been very interested in just having something to do. Like I like having shit to do, And so, I did that for 5.5 years and ran its course, and I sold out, and I made, walked away with $32,000 in my pocket, right? Dumb luck, perfect timing, right? The industry, and we had no idea what we were doing. None. All we knew was we were excited about this, right? We were excited about snowboarding. We were excited about everything about it and the industry and how it was changing the skiing industry and whether they liked it or not or whatever, So that was basically the plan. Buy into the snowboard shop, work my ass off 80 hours a week and learn something, and hopefully have enough time off to go hang out,
That's honestly not a bad plan. And I'm sure you don't regret doing that.
Oh, no, not at all. But it wasn't like when you say plan, like, again, I don't know. It was like, I was just like, yeah, I always thought of myself as a business owner. So here we go. When I started my construction company, in 2000, a couple years after, selling the snowboard shop, I started a construction company, and the first job I got was replacing the windows. I was at a dinner party, and these people were like, or not the windows, but the doors. They're like, oh, we need all our doors pulled and replaced. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, sure. But there's one thing I didn't tell them this, but I'd never replaced a door in my life. So
you're like, how hard could it be? There's a couple of hinges. It's square. Like, whatever. Give me this.
Went to Home Depot, got a book, bought some, some more tools. And I had worked as a carpenter. So it wasn't like, I'd framed houses, and done stuff like that. I just never done interior trim and done a door,
How'd it go?
Well, I got it done. It was all beautiful and everything. I probably made about $4 an hour. But
yeah, I've definitely taken jobs like that.
Yeah, but but I learned, right? Now I know how to put in doors, right? I know what it takes. I know what that I guess the beauty of, thinking back on things, like the beauty, and my whole life revolves around failure in every way. Cause I investigate failed buildings. That's my job. That's like my real world thing, right? I'm a forensic carpenter. So we buildings fail, people screw them up, they fail. We come in, we figure out how to fix it, and we put it all back together. This is energy, ventilation, structural, moisture issues, mold, whatever it be. And I also consult on the front end to try to get people to not build so they will fail, right? Taking all those failures and going, okay, don't do this.
Right, right.
And so that's like that part of my life. And then, I look back on it, and the nice thing about sport, the nice thing about especially adventure sport and all that stuff is like you gotta have a thick skin as far as failure goes. If you don't like failing, you're going to have a long road ahead of you. Or if you don't understand that you're going to fail, or, it's going to be a long road for you. So I've never really had an aversion to failure. I don't think.
Well, that's had to have served you well. Cause, failure is like initiation in the world of adventure sports and outdoor stuff, and honestly life. So
Yeah.
You've got some good tools in your tool belt, man, that have helped you carry through this trial.
Yeah, and it's kind of that old thing. If you're going to be, dumb, you might, or if you're going to be, stupid, you better be tough as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for better or worse, you go through life doing things the way you do them. I think the biggest thing that's come over the last 8 years, though, is the realization that you don't have to keep repeating them.
Your failures, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't need to keep repeating your failures, or even you can redefine yourself. You can reinvent who you are, how you look at yourself, how you perceive yourself. And I think, unfortunately, I find it's really hard for people to get that and to be comfortable with it.
Have the ankle injuries kind of accelerated that for you? Because,
yes.
you probably had a lot of identity wrapped in your ability to do things, because I know I do.
Yep.
And I can't do the things I did even a couple years ago because of some knee injuries, and it really causes me to change my entire mindset on everything, and it's hard.
Yeah, how are you doing? I one of the biggest questions I like asking people is how are you redefining or accepting your reality?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. I'm curious.
Yeah, I suffered an injury about almost a year ago now. First of all, I did a big bike trip where I just really overextended my knees to the point where I was putting a lot of pressure on now I know it's my patellar tendon. Then I just played basketball after the trip and went up for a putback and came down and just felt totally, it was painful. And so I stopped playing, and it has not been the same since. Gone to a lot of physical therapy and looking into what to do now. But I went from, I'm a college athlete, very, really good cyclist. For me, I thought I was all right. Loved to bike, loved to be super active. And I honestly can't hardly do anything right now. And I think it's definitely humbled me. I understand what people say when your body changes over time. I'm pretty young. I'm 20 years behind you.
Okay.
I'm not 30 yet, but it's dang, am I going to be this limited going into my 30s? But I don't want I just don't want those negative thoughts to just basically encapsulate me, And
yeah.
so I've kind of turned to work and turned to focusing on a lot smaller joys, and then and trying not to live in the past. I'm sure it's going to get better with time, but it's taken a lot longer than I expected. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. I'm just learning how to deal with it. So
yeah, no, that's and that you know what, I have to say, it's really good to hear you though say that you are learning how to deal with it. Because a lot of people that I talk to, they're not willing to do that.
And what do they do? How do you know that? Are they like the guy that just talks about, the high school football team 40 years later, and that's all they can talk about?
Yeah, no. Yeah. And you have that, it's not just football. It's everything. Right. People hark back to a better day. Like I was starting to say, in your 20s, you're a lunatic and you're trying to just figure out, this world. You got, you're trying to plan, but you really don't have a plan, or you might think you know what you want, but you don't. And it's just fine. You're an idiot. You're in your 20s. It's just the way it goes. And you start getting to the end of your 20s and you start going oh yeah, all right, time to start maybe figuring something out, some sort of thing. And then you hit your 30s, and the 30s is like building. That's when you're building things around you. You're building and I think that's really when you start in your late 20s, in your 30s, you really start building that real identity of where the stories that you tell about yourself. It's okay. You've got experience and you got energy at that point.
Yes. Okay.
And so you, right, cause you got through your 20s, so you kind of beat yourself up and you figure some things out. Now you got some experience, and, experience, it's like everybody says, how do you do what you do? Well, I got good judgment. Why do I have good judgment? Cause I have experience. I have experience because I have bad judgment. And, so you
all right, I'm writing that down.
Right. So you've gone through these cycles, right? And you get to your 30s and you're like, I still got a ton of energy. And now I kind of got like somewhat of a clue.
And some discipline that you can probably actually do things.
Yeah. And I got maybe like this, and I'm starting to identify who I am and what I'm doing. And you start building that. And that's good, right? You're building that. I think the problem is it depends on what you're building and how you're building it and how your mindset is while you're building it, because you can really drive yourself into an identity crisis in your 30s. That when you hit your 40s, you all of a sudden, I don't care what anybody says about midlife crisis and all that shit, it's real. You're gonna hit your 40s, and some people buy the sports car, some people have affairs, some people, it's all different spectrums, but everybody goes through it. Like you go through this time period where all of a sudden you go, wait a second, I'm now halfway there.
Wow.
Like I'm going to die, right? It's because you're going to die. Everybody knows they're going to die, right? But when you're in your 20s and 30s, it's way down the road, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's over there, right? And, which is really stupid because none of us are guaranteed anything, right? So you're not guaranteed a long time, right? So the fact that we do think that way, even when we're in our 20s, is really kind of weird. Because especially with the things like, we traveled around for most of my 20s, we traveled around the Western United States trying to drown ourselves in some waterfall or hole or creek.
Yeah. I did the same thing on the road trying to get hit by semis.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, so you're like, yeah, I'm going to live forever. Right. Not at this rate. So, you do these things, you plod through, and I think the biggest thing you run into that I've found is that you get these injuries when you're younger, you can recover easier. It depends how much you put yourself through. But when I was younger, I would hinder myself pretty badly, but I could recover with minimal effort. So did I go as far as I should have in those time periods to really make sure I was recovered? No. Now I'm paying for it.
So how has that changed your mindset around your identity? Like, has it been a difficult transition for you?
Yeah. So basically it's like I start a lot of my talks telling people it's like, the object of flying lies in throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Right.
Right. But evidently the world, in my attempts to fly, the world is an extremely large target and it's pretty damn hard. So you can only try this experiment for so long, okay, before you have to get smarter, right? And you have to realize that you are going to die, okay? We're all going to die. It might sound morbid. It might sound like a weird thing to think, but if you really, to tell you the truth, if you keep in mind every day that someday I'm going to die, I might want to make what I've got right now the most pleasurable I can make it.
Born from logging and exploration, Danner Boots is a Pacific Northwest original. Every boot is handmade to hold up in unforgiving conditions and live up to their unyielding standards. The Stronghold work boot is what happens when more than 85 years of legendary quality, durability, and heritage runs into modern construction, technology, and materials. You get tomorrow's classic today, the Stronghold work boot. Check them out or find a local store at danner.com. Yeah, that's a great, and I'll be honest, I don't look at it as morbid at all. It's something I do think about quite a bit, and I bring it up a lot. Like, it's really, I don't know, I mess with my dogs a lot. They'll be up in my face, and I'll be like, you're not going to be here much longer. You're already 7 years old. And I'm just kidding with them, but my wife is like, well, stop it. Like, don't tell them that. I'm like, you just got to remember, because they might not be here in just a few years. And But yeah, I know that it is a problem for people, but I think you and I are kind of similar in that way. Death is definitely something I think about a lot.
Yeah, and it kind of puts a lot of things in perspective, because we have a very, and just wrapping it back around to adventure sports. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed that in adventure sports, every now and then you meet somebody who's a tad bit competitive, and so they have such a drive and such a way forward. Now, it's kind of odd because I am like the most uncompetitive person in the world. I really don't care about competition. I like to have fun, but I'm really not competitive. I might be competitive with myself a bit. I do want to grow all the time, and I do want to go forward. But like with other people, I'm like, whatever. But, if you spend all that time, there's a lot of time spent in comparison in that state. If you're in a competitive state, basically you're comparing, right, to everything around you in that state. And we do this right now in society more than anything else. Just look at Instagram, look at Facebook, look at Twitter. It is a constant, overwhelming comparison to everything out there in the world.
Yeah, even if you don't want it to be, that it's a slippery slope the moment you get on.
Mm-hmm. And so you have this ability to get racked up in not only your own identity, but how your identity transfers to everything else around you and everybody else around you. So you take somebody who's super competitive and has been comparing, basically to be competitive, you have to compare yourself to everybody else.
Yeah, by definition. Right.
That's the whole meaning of it. and what is it? Comparison is the robbing of the present joy. So you're doing that. So you'd be going through life comparing yourself to everything else around you and competing. And now all of a sudden you can't do what you used to do. You can't compete at that level.
Yeah.
You're not there. And it could happen slowly. It could happen traumatically. I have friends who have, one friend who had 5 hip surgeries in the past, 5 years. And just, one catastrophe thing after another happened to him, infections or replacement went wrong or whatever it may be. Or then he went out and did things too early and then broke it down too fast. You know what I'm saying? And then I have another friend who was paragliding, total badass, and she just shattered both of her feet and one leg really bad. And now she's super competitive, super outgoing, outdoors person, and now she's hobbled up. And you don't have much patience in that situation too, because you're a competitive person. Competitive people aren't patient.
It's really difficult, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it's very hard to sit back and go, okay, I need to take years to recover. Years.
Oof. And it's hard because, your prime is only so long. Even if you stay completely healthy, I think dang, if this lasts 5 years, a good chance is I'll never do this at a level that I want to ever again.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah. Yep. All you have to do is look at football players, especially.
Yeah. Yeah. Team sports, it's super easy to
example.
See.
You got some guy, top of the world, blah, 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 for 2-3 years, just tearing up the league, doing whatever he's doing. One major injury, out for a season, and never quite really comes back. And one of the reasons why is because they're rushed back.
They
are to make their living, right?
I think there was a guy on the Steelers that he tackled a few years ago. He's 25. I mean, just a stud of specimen. The guy went to this ceremony, I think it was the ESPY Awards, and he hobbled on stage because he was paralyzed. And I'm like, you are 25 years old. You are capable of anything in the world, and you have to hold your wife's shoulders to walk now.
Yeah.
How messed up is your mind, and how much do you have to get through to even want to continue on in life?
Yeah.
God.
And the best part about it, the best thing I try to tell people, because if we'll circle back around to that mindset, that broken mindset, and getting through it, is the realization that there are a billion things to do in this world.
Yeah.
And so many of them, you're not a one trick pony. I know people like to think they are. And trust me, I've had a struggle with myself that there's this identity that you have around what you are, but we're not one trick ponies. And this is, and I've seen some of my other friends do this. Personally, I went through a stage where I go, okay, I need to write. I'm, like I said, not an academic person. I'm a horrible writer. Not that I don't have good ideas. I just technically, I'm really, really bad at the English language. I don't get it. Like I just don't, And so, but I told myself, I was like any skill, I can get better at it. I wasn't hucking 30-foot waterfalls first day of kayaking. I was swimming down the Gunnison River. So, right, boat in one hand, paddle in the other. And so you have, if you're able to realize that you're not just the sum of one thing, you can really change your mind. You can really find, if you open it up, if you allow yourself to open up and see everything for what it is, then see that the world is full of just a massive amount of amazing things. It's, like motorcycling did this to me. I've lived in Crested Butte, Gunnison area and I did a little time in Northwest Denver. I lived in Colorado in this same area for 30 years. I got the motorcycle 3 years ago for a trip to Baja, and I started doing small trips around Crested Butte. Now, an hour and a half on a motorcycle, 2 hours, you're ready to get off. You need to get off. Get a cup of coffee. It has opened up a whole new world of places within 100-mile radius of Crested Butte that I never knew existed. And without the motorcycle, I wouldn't have found that.
And that's okay for your ankles, is why you had to kind of forced into that. Not forced, but that became an option.
Yeah, it became an option. Like, I can ride a motorcycle,
Yeah.
It was interesting, soloing through, sandy back road desert in Baja, with a bad ankle and having to walk with a cane and stuff like that, but I made it.
Right.
It was slow and somewhat painful at some times and very, I didn't make many miles, but I was doing things that were completely hard and challenging and out of my scope. And it was a freaking blast.
Wow.
And you discovered that. And then last year, my friend and I loaded up the bikes and we went all the way down to Huatuco, Mexico, which is down in Oaxaca on the south coast, right down, and another friend of ours, and we went down the spine through all the mountain country.
Yeah. Yep.
And you want to talk about just seeing things that are just the opening up of a world when you all of a sudden your whole life doesn't revolve around a mountain bike all the time. You see what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
It's like in mountains, but I love mountain biking. I'm so glad I can do it again, because I haven't for about 3 years. And this year is the first year back where I can really go out and do 25, 30-mile rides, on a regular basis, not be stuck on the couch the next day or for 2 days. And
yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, right.
I can do something, but I'm going to pay for it for like a week.
Yeah, and those are the things where that can get discouraging. Trust me, man. Monday morning, I woke up. I had a weekend where I did a bunch of yoga and I did a bunch of working out. And every morning I have to walk with a cane for like the first 15 minutes. I can't get to the bathroom without it. Like I can't. It's like, or I'm crawling, literally, because I'm in so much pain when I wake up. And that's just every morning. And Monday morning, man, it was tough. It was really hard. But if you set yourself up with the fact that that's not everything, your ability to get out of bed and run to the bathroom is not everything. Your ability for the rest of the day is everything. Your ability to get up and walk out on at 5 degrees, walk out on the, front porch and, shorts and fire breathe for, 2 minutes in in just shorts, come back in, do your yoga, do your stretching, get your, journal, write a gratitude email to somebody, put yourself out there, as soon as you're able to realize that it's outside of you, everything, you know what I'm saying? It's not all about this one thing. That's when you're able to kind of deal and get around it. And, and then by the time I'm cooking breakfast, I can walk again. Right. Wow. And I'm okay. And the rest of the day, and then, it gets a little harder at the end of the day. I got to sit down, I get a little bit, but I've re-engineered my life. I've, into, like I said, now I'm writing a blog, so I'm sitting down more, right? And working on my next poetry book, and, I'm designing things, and I'm inspecting, and I'm consulting. So I'm not carrying around a tool belt all day. Like, I had to make those decisions. And let me tell you, this doesn't just, the carpentry world, like these guys, you're a carpenter your whole life. You get into your 50s, dude, it starts getting hard.
Yes.
You fall off a couple roofs, you back up, you do whatever you do, it takes its toll. And these guys that's what they know how to do. You want to talk about reinventing yourself? Like, sports is one thing. You want to start reinventing your whole livelihood? Man, now we're talking some depression.
Depression and pressure.
Yeah, pressure. I got to make a living, right?
Yeah.
I got to support myself. Got to pay my bills.
And I can't climb up on this ladder like I used to, or carry around all this weight, hold this nail gun, whatever.
Or I can do it, but I can do it for 4 hours.
And
that's it. Right? That's
Man.
My day. Right? And
so which one of those was most daunting to you? Reinventing what you enjoy doing for adventure or for work?
I think it all kind of melded together. I think they all helped each other, to tell you the truth. I had already, before the ankles really became bad, I had already started making a transition into the building science world, and doing energy audits, getting trained on green building, better building practices, all kinds of stuff. And so that kind of had already started. So I had a little bit of a base there of something else. And I was also growing my knowledge, like anything you can do to grow your value. Right. So, motorcycling through Mexico, that I look at that and I'm like, huge value.
Yeah.
Right. To me and to people around me, because I have now experienced something. And I've actually experienced a culture. I'm not saying you got to do it on a motorcycle. Just go to a third world country and hang out.
Right.
See what that's about, man. Even if it's in a major city, just look, observe it, and understand it. And like, that is a value in you now, right? To see, especially as an American, to see like the fact that we are most privileged people on the face of the earth right now. And I know we have a lot in the news that says how bad it is and how decisive and all this stuff. Like, man, it's never been better.
Dude, I can't agree more. We got it made. I mean,
yeah,
I don't have to worry about survival. The only my stresses and my issues are really about luxury.
Yep.
Am I going to be able to do this bike trip I want to? Am I going to be able to make this much money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all kind of luxurious standard stuff.
Yeah. When you're in the middle of nowhere in the mountains of Mexico on this nasty ass freaking road and I've got a beautiful piece of machinery in this BMW 1200 GS underneath me, powering through all this, and I'm puckered, right? Getting through it. And two kids come by you on a freaking little 125 with their no helmets, with their school clothes on, like, yeah, what's up? And you're like,
holy cow.
And you're like, all right, I ain't such a
yeah,
I'm just a privileged American.
Yeah.
Out in the backcountry of a country, and these people, this is their everyday commuting road.
Yeah.
This is how they get to school and back. The guy comes by you in a 2-wheel drive Toyota box truck that's, delivering chips to the next town. And I'm like, where are you going, dude?
He's like, what the heck you need that thing for?
Yeah.
That's
he's
so
like
funny.
all excited. He's like, out the window. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And so I think it's, when I talk to people about, and I ask them about how they're dealing with their realities, it's, if we can all just really realize that we are not just one thing, we can be. I'm not saying you have to be an expert in all this stuff. I've written a poetry book. I have a poetry book out. Do I consider myself a poet? Not in the least. I'm just a guy who writes poetry, but I get an immense amount of joy out of it. Right.
Yeah.
So do I have to be a poet? Do I have to identify myself as that? No. I'm still getting a lot of joy out of the situation.
By now you certainly know who Bendgate is. That's for a great reason. Bendgate Mountaineering has been sponsoring the Adventure Sports Podcast almost from the beginning, and we really appreciate that. They've made it possible for all the great shows to continue coming your way. We want to say thanks by reminding you to go to them for your backcountry gear. If you live in Colorado, then just stop by their store in Golden. If not, go to bentgate.com. They have what you need, from the latest ultralight gear to the tried and true classics for climbing, hiking, and camping, like Arc'teryx, Hilleberg, Nemo, Western Mountaineering, and many more. Need advice? They have you covered there too. Their staff are passionate adventurers who can offer help from their own experiences. Bendgate also hosts lots of events and speakers. Check out their website to see the schedule and to see all of their products. Help take care of the Adventure Sports Podcast by getting your gear from Bendgate Mountaineering.
The Adventure Sports Podcast is also brought to you by Powder 7 Ski Shop. Powder 7 is Colorado's premier homegrown and family-owned ski shop. Online at powder7.com, they offer a huge selection of new and used ski gear, plus full tech and boot fitting services at their shop in Golden. With personalized customer service, they set up skiers from all over the world with perfect gear. From brands like Kesley, Rosignol, Black Crows, and Head, Powder 7 is all skiing all the time. So check out powder7.com to learn more. Now, back to the episode. And that's good for me to hear, because I have so much identity wrapped up in these few sports that I have done a lot in. And I know, most people feel that way because there's only so much time and energy you have to devote to something. But it makes me think, you talking, what are the chances that I found my greatest passions within me? The things that I'm going to love more than anything. What's the chances I've actually found those things? Probably pretty slim. The reason you're into these things, someone introduced you, you did it in school. If you try something else, you have no idea what kind of desires are in you until you start discovering them. And if you're limited and you can't do the things that you thought you loved this much, that's super encouraging. There are millions of things to try. And the fact that I do what I do is really just a matter of chance. I happen to play basketball. I happen to get on a bike one day. But it's almost like, when you get married, what are the chances this is the only person for me? Well, it's pretty slim. You know what I mean? There's lots of people I would connect with. And there's lots of, I'm sure, passions that everyone can connect with. But when you're forced to discover them, it sounds like a blessing in disguise, really.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the embracement of failure. Failure comes in a lot of ways. A lot of people think of failure as something bad, but it's it's like, okay, so in '95, doing a photo shoot as Santa Claus on a snowboard, and I told it it's Christmas time, and they want somebody to dress up in a Santa suit, so they come over and snowboard. They come over to the snowboard shop, Owen working. And they talk me into it, and I go, listen, dude, I'm giving you one run, because we're nuts, right? We're putting out 65 boards a day. We're, we're a small snowboard. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Photographer and I go out. I come through these trees. look down, I see rocks. I'm fogged up from the Santa suit. I turn the board sideways, which is what you're not supposed to do, and land ass first right on the rock and break my pelvis.
God.
Right? So you're like, failure. Right? Not only, okay, so you're thinking like you're laying there and I'm like, son of a right?
Yeah.
Total failure, right? It turns out not such a failure because the photos went across the country. My mom was like, oh my God, in New York, you're in the paper, right? Because if I got in a picture, if you got in a picture of Santa snowboarding, all right, Santa snowboarding, breaks his pelvis, Christmas is called off. That's another story. Right? Failure, not failure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then
that's funny.
Then it exasperates an already bad back, right? In the long run. And I'm Zoolander. I can't turn left. Like seriously, if I turn quickly to my left, I'll hit the ground. Like my sciatic, my nerves, all this stuff. Like I got pinched nerve. I got all kinds of. Oh yeah, I'm a mess. I'm 25 years old. And my girlfriend's like, hey, at the time she's like, I'm signed you up for the Subak Do thing. Andy who runs it, he's got a super bad back. He's got this whole thing about bad backs. I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't have to pay for it. So I go down. I start doing this fit back workout in the winter of 95. Wait, this is now the winter of 96. I start doing this fit back workout every morning. I go to the shop, I lay on the floor, and I start doing this little thing with some yoga involved in it. I've had a yoga, stretching, strengthening routine now for 27 years.
Wow.
Every morning. I miss some mornings. Some mornings are more, some mornings are less, depending on how much time I have. Integrated this, integrated that. Failure? No, not in the long run. Right? So, unfortunately, we feel like we're failures when these things happen. Right? I did not feel when I'm laying there on the gurney getting pulled off the mountain and we're only made it halfway down this run. And, I'm thinking to myself like, okay, A, I busted myself up. B, we didn't get the photo shoot done. So this guy doesn't have his thing. I'm stuck in the Santa suit, can't take it off. So they can't put it on somebody else, all that stuff. Right? So thing after another. And in the end, you got to look at it as like, wow, that experience opened up some big doors for me.
Interesting.
And I've never had back problems, after 5-6 years of doing all that, I don't have back problems anymore.
It's a great story.
Yeah. It's
like
just,
how random. First of all,
right.
You're Santa on a snowboard. You being Santa on a snowboard led to you not having back pain. What the hell is that about?
Exactly. Right. Breaking my pelvis. Right. So, it's all the whole thing of like, oh, what bad luck. We'll see.
Wow.
Right. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And there's no way to predict that. Like no way to predict how those things line up.
Right. And so those are the things, it's things lead to another and in your life. And if you let it and you pay attention to it and you think and that's why I love meditation, because I really do believe in meditation. However you can do it, just do it. Don't get too technical. Just sit down for 2-3 minutes and be grateful for a bunch of stuff, right? However you want to do it. And, I've integrated it over the years on and off. And in the past, 5 years, it's been almost every morning and, 10, 12 minutes. And, it allows you to stop, man, just stop for a second and think and be okay inside your brain. Right. And it sucks. Nobody does it right. Everybody goes, I suck at it. I go, yeah, everybody sucks at it. It's horrible. It's like nobody knows how to do it. If anybody tells you know how to do it and they're enlightened and all that, they're full of crap. It's called a practice for a reason.
Right.
Never ending. Right. It's like,
yeah. Absolutely.
So I think those abilities to really stop comparing ourselves, stop competing. And I'm not saying that competition's a bad thing. The problem is competition in like everything. I find to be a very toxic state in people. Like it's cool. Like you want to be competitive, you want to be good at stuff. I get it. But when you're constantly, the problem is with it, I go back to that, it's that comparison thing. It rips the joy out of stuff when you're constantly competing.
Yes.
Whether, be with yourself, you're constantly comparing and you're constantly taking the joy out because you're comparing. You're not just letting it be what it'll be. And so there's a surrender factor in a lot of this recovery. And, it's huge when you just have to say like, all right, I surrender to this. I need to get better. And that could be a mental thing. That could be a work thing. That could be, a physical thing, whatever it is. When you surrender to the point of just being like, all right, this needs to change. This needs to be different. How do we do it? Like, I need to be different. I need to look at this differently. I need to change. Then we're on the right path.
What's your perspective on like the 25-year-old going balls to the wall now? What do you reach out to that person? Do you just let them figure it out on their own? Like, what's your approach? How do you view that?
I think, like I said before, I think there's a lot of, it's just what you do in your 20s, right? It's that time period of your life, and that's what you're built for in that time period of your life. But I will say that even if you can just listen a little bit to people around you, and I think listening is it's a really hard thing to do for most of us. I struggle with it. I have to remind myself all the time, shut up, listen. And, and really listen, like physically listen. Listen with your eyes, listen with your ears. If we can all learn that a little bit younger, pay heed and just pay attention and be okay with it. Being okay, I think another big thing is the failure. The nice thing about failing a lot is I think it allowing people to fail and being sympathetic to it, not being judgmental about the failure, right? When people fail around you, not be like, yeah, you dumbass. Be like, all right, cool. Well, let's fix it. With our children, with everybody being like, yeah, it happens, man. We all do it. And because one thing that I find more in my business than anything else is because I'm investigating building failures. The reason why the building failed is because somebody messed up, right? Yeah. So really I'm investigating human failure. It's very hard, very, 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 very hard for people to be wrong. It's extremely hard for people to go, whoop, screwed that up.
Yeah.
But what I do find more than anything, if I'm going to tell somebody in their 20s, like if I was going to tell me, like if we rearrange that question into what would I tell my 25-year-old self? What advice would I give my 25-year-old self? Right. That's a really big question. And Tim Ferriss always asks that question to people. I don't know if it would be advice is more of just like, dude, like just take a second to really pay attention and listen, and just soak some more stuff in and be wrong. And the biggest thing I think I would say, it's like, it's okay. You can just be wrong. It's all right. And I find that the more the people I work with in the consulting world, when like we go, okay, here's the problem, right? You go, okay, here's the leak because of this. They go, if the people are willing to go, especially like the project manager, go, oh, all right, well, we screwed that up. Like just to say that, like, oh, well, that's screwed up. Not he screwed it up. They screwed it up. The guy before me screwed it up, whatever it is, just be like, own it. It's like amazing how you can just move forward and be like, oh, cool, here we go. Time to fix it.
Right.
Like you've got over all the bullshit and you can just fix it. You can move forward. It's really hard to move forward when there's the blame thing going on, when there's the pointing and the accusing and things like that. That's really hard to move forward from that spot with solutions.
So So what's on your radar for adventures? What do you got going on? I know you don't make plans, so you don't have to say it too far ahead. But
well,
what's going through your mind?
My girlfriend and I just got back from Alaska, and we wanted to bring the kids there. And we were like, oh my God, we're turning 50 in 2 years, and I wanted to ride motorcycles all the way to Patagonia.
Dude.
And the more we looked into that, more we were like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, just because I like my best friend that I would do it with has right now a 3-year-old. He would have a 5-year-old at the time. Being gone for 6 months, probably not going to happen. Things like that. It was like, logistically, you were a little like, okay. Yeah, you were like, yeah, I don't know if this is really going to happen. But then once we were up in Alaska, we were like, we want to show the kids this. And then like our kids are older. So they're all driving age. And so we're like, oh my God, we get a camper, like a burly camper, and put it on the back of the 3500. And the kids can drive that. We'll ride motorcycles because we all turned 50 the same year. And we'll go all the way up the Canadian coast to Alaska.
Dude, I did that on a bike one time.
Yeah, dude, that must have been, I'll hit you up. I'd love to get some information.
Yeah, rad. Alaskan Highway, the Canadian border, or the coast. It was rad.
Yeah, we just, and no, like you said about the plan thing. If we make it to Alaska, we make it to Alaska. If we don't, we don't.
Yeah.
Like take it as like one of those things, like if we want to spend 4 days somewhere, we'll bring the mountain bikes, the paddle boards, like just load it up and everybody can just have fun. If we want to spend 4 days somewhere, we spend 4 days somewhere.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could do that at so many points. It's really hard to continue sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it's just epic from start to finish. Yeah.
And just, like not have we need to be, and a friend of mine actually said, the best way if you want to do that, he goes, I would take the ferry first, go up, because then you don't have to be anywhere specifically for a ferry ride on the way back. So once you get there, you can just work your way back.
That's actually the ferry ride's going to be cool in itself.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That actually sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We're still in the infantile stages of figuring this out, but there's that, and there's always other things, man. I've been chomping at the bit to get on the moto, but it's been too cold. And, mountain bike season's over. I'm done. I'm ready to ski again. I haven't really skied in years. And I think this year I'm recovered enough where I can start skiing a bit more, doing some backcountry.
Give it a shot.
Yeah. Give it a little bit more, up that game just a little bit. Not nearly as much, not nearly as at the level I used to. We're not hucking anything or anything like that. But
right.
I haven't done that in a long time, but, I'm still having a blast. And I think that's the key is like, man, just realize that we're very lucky to just be out, especially to live in places that we live and enjoy this. Having a lot of gratitude in your life can help. And I know it sounds all woo woo and kind of hippy dippy, but it really is huge to have a lot of gratitude in your life. And, this ain't no dress rehearsal. So
no,
get out and do something. It doesn't have to be the best thing in the world, but do something, and have fun doing it.
Dude, that's exactly what we say on this show. Just get out there. Like, I don't care if you just go look at the viewpoints, like do something. Yeah. It's like a free solo guy, talking about how like, if I have a rope on, I'm at this level. Like I'm pushing it, I'm going through, but when I'm free soloing, I'm backed off down to here. Yeah. I mean, nothing's hard. Zone, nothing's right. Hard. I'm in safety zone. Yeah. And I'm cool with that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the enjoyment level, right? Is being there. And that's cool. I don't have to be tearing up the world, but but my enjoyment is at this level here. And, so I think there's especially once you get broken enough, I don't think you can really deny the fact that at some point you got to go, oh, okay. Dude, I've fallen in love with just like walking, hiking, but just walking around. Like that's about all I can do. And then it starts to hurt after a few hours. And I'm like, man, I'm just really happy to be looking at these mountains, to be here, to take so I've gotten into photography more. And so, there's all these, it's just going to lead you to new and new things. So I appreciate this conversation personally. And I guarantee other people are going to as well. Because once you start talking about it, man, so many people are going through this kind of transition, and it's hard for a lot of them.
Yeah, it is. It really is hard. I have a lot of friends who've gone through and serious depression.
Absolutely.
I've been lucky, extremely lucky, to not have had that. Not that I haven't had hard times, trust me.
Yeah.
But I really haven't had like a depression. I've had, broken heart, but that's a little different.
Yeah, it sucks too, though.
Yeah, it sucks. It does suck. But that in the turn led me to realize, the person I'm with now, having that broken heart years ago, taught me it taught me a lot about who I need to love, and led me to the person I'm with now, who I'm like, it's kind of stupid how giddy I am about the whole situation. So, yeah.
Man, that's love, man. Yeah, that'll do it to you. Turn you back into a kid.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. And yeah, share this with your friends that are going through it. And I know that, I just know a lot of people going through this. So I appreciate your willingness to talk about it.
Yeah. And like I said, I am working on writing all this down. I have a feeling that at some point it will become a book. Kind of this whole, process, my process and other people's process. So if anybody wants to share things they're going through, hit me up.
How do they get in touch with you?
Email is, Bart Laemmel, L-A, so it's BART LAEMMEL @gmail.com. Phone number is 970-901-8881. I'm on Instagram as Bull Diggy, BULLDIGGY. That's a nickname from a nickname. I used to be called the Bulldog.
Alrighty.
Main reason for that.
I figured.
And I'm on Facebook under Bart Laemmel. And, Messenger, smoke signal me, or just show up here in Crested Butte and ask around, and somebody will find me. I've been here long enough. I'm almost local.
You had a mohawk when I saw you, so I don't know if you still have it. If you do, it's easy to spot.
Yeah. So, I'd love to talk to people about this, because I want to get their experiences. I want to see how they're dealing with it. If they have any tricks, routines, whatever it might be, or if they want some tricks and routines, I'm always happy to share. So,
well, man, thank you so much for being on here. And
not a problem.
Yeah, I'll hit you up anytime I'm in the area.
Please do, for sure, man. And if I'm down in Denver, I'll do the same.
All right, dude.
Excellent. Well, you have a wonderful day. Enjoy it.
You too, man.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you know somebody that would make a good guest on the show, or if you have a pretty cool story about the outdoors or adventure sports that you want to tell us, please call us and leave a voicemail at 812-MAIL-POD. That is 812-624-5763. You can also send us an email at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. Again, it is always helpful to leave us a review on iTunes. And if you'd like to be a supporter of the show, you can give $5 a month at patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. And links for all that stuff is also in the show notes. So thanks again for listening. And y'all get out there and do something so you can be on the show one day. All right, later. Don't forget, if you want to save 20% off the best backpacking food you're ever going to eat, go to peakrefuel.com and use ASP20 at checkout.